Hey, and welcome back to the channel. Let's get your shift together. I'm Coach Adriana, and today I'm going to be talking about being raised by a narcissistic parent and being a perfectionist. As usual, before I dive in, if you're not subscribed to the channel, you know what to do. Smash that subscribe button, leave a comment, like the video, engage in whatever algorithm boosting activities you can, because this is really going to help me out and help me spread this word to more survivors of narcissistic abuse who need to see this content. So if you are a perfectionist and you were raised by a narcissistic parent, this video is for you. And I'm gonna start this off with reminding you first and foremost that there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. It is a completely normal trauma response to be a perfectionist if you were raised by a narcissist, and I'm a perfectionist too. Maybe I'm a bit more of a recovering perfectionist. I think Brene Brown says I'm an aspiring good enoughness, so that is where I'm at. And at the end of the day, it is okay to be a perfectionist. It is normal to be a perfectionist after everything you've been through, and we're all in this together. So now that that's out of the way, let's talk first of all about what exactly is perfectionism. It's really just a personality trait where you feel like you need to do everything perfectly or it's not going to be good enough. There's going to be consequences if you make the tiniest little mistake. And even in like the most mundane of tasks that don't actually matter, you might be racking your brain trying to figure out how to make this perfect because anything less than perfect is not good enough for your inner critic. And guess who the inner critic is? That was your narcissistic mother or father who pretty much installed that voice in your unconscious mind from day one. So now let's get into why we become perfectionists, especially after being raised by narcissists. And if you weren't raised by a narcissist, but you've had a long-term relationship with one, chances are you might have this trait as well. And what I'm going to share in this video is probably going to be helpful for you too. So like I mentioned earlier, it's a trauma response. And what is a trauma response? It's a response to trauma. So when you've been through the trauma of narcissistic abuse, your brain had to take on certain traits and behaviors in order to protect you from the trauma that was going on. And when you experience trauma, especially from narcissistic abuse, that's going to be repressed shame. So the perfectionism is protecting you from the shame. So just a little recap on how the child brain works. When you're a kid and you're raised by a narcissist and you make a mistake and your parent shames you for making the mistake, or they change the goalposts, or they tell you that you didn't do something good enough, or whatever it is, and if you have an emotional response to it that's inconvenient to your parent, so if you're upset about them basically like insulting you for, I don't know, you breathed wrong or whatever random thing the narcissist is bringing up that you did wrong because they're just trying to get supply from you at the end of the day, the child brain interprets the emotion as a life and death situation. So you repress the shame, and instead of, having a healthy way to express that emotion, you have to repress it in order to survive, and in comes the perfectionism. So your brain creates this belief that you have to do whatever you did wrong perfectly moving forward or else you're gonna die. I know that sounds extreme, but the brain in its early development is really only concerned about life and death, and it's interpreting pretty much everything as a life and death situation. And when you're a child, you obviously view your parents as gods because you don't have any other choice, right? Like that trust is built in with a parent, and you're gonna take whatever they say to heart. So your brain takes on this personality trait of being a perfectionist in order to protect you from that shame. Another example of how the child brain works, let's say you're 5 years old. Just a random example here, you lose your security blanket or your favorite toy or whatever, and you're crying because you're sad about it. Because children get sad over things like that. But you have a narcissistic mother. And so instead of her kind of, comforting you or whatever parents are actually supposed to do, which, would include things like not make the situation worse. This is something that totally blew my mind on my healing journey. Learning that parents are actually supposed to help their children navigate the big, heavy emotions that come up during life. Obviously, when you're raised by a narcissist, you don't get that. So instead of actually helping you navigate this emotion, this sadness, this grief, this fear, whatever it is that you lost this important thing to you at that time, she starts to berate you and tell you that you're stupid for crying, or you're ugly when you cry, and just all the things that narcissistic parents say to their children when they're in a state of emotional distress, right? I'll give you something to cry about. Big girls don't cry, big boys don't cry, whatever. They say that to diminish your emotion and make you repress your emotion. And the child brain basically translates this whole scenario as, it's pissing my mother off to be crying about this thing. I'm ashamed of myself, so I'm just gonna put this emotion away, never feel it again, and boom, you start repressing your emotions. And this is something that continues throughout your life. It's not like you turn 18, you're an adult now, and your brain's like, hey, we're gonna start processing our emotions instead of repressing them. It doesn't work that way because you never had the tools to know what to do with your emotions, and you have to teach yourself this in adulthood. Lucky you, right? But you know what, it is possible. I've done it. I still do it to this day. I still do the emotional work, and you know, it's so worth it. It sucks, but what's the alternative? The alternative sucks so much worse. And yeah, that's also how you become a perfectionist, because the goalposts keep moving throughout your childhood. You're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. Oh, that was okay, but this could have been better. And you need to be protected from that shame, because your brain literally believes you're gonna die from it. And of course, this is all happening on an unconscious level. It's not like you're, you know, consciously thinking like, I think I'm going to die, so I'm gonna pick up this trait. No, like your brain is doing what it needs to do to protect you, and it's doing its job by keeping you alive. So if you were raised by a narcissist and you're a perfectionist, congratulations, your brain works completely normally. But obviously in adulthood, perfectionism might not be serving you. And the good news is that this can totally, you know, this learned trait of being a perfectionist can be unlearned, and you can start catching yourself when you are being a perfectionist. And it really starts with processing the repressed shame. And again, none of this is ever an overnight process, but taking that first baby step today, think about how far ahead you'll be in like 5 years, right? Or even a month. So think about any scenario in your life where you feel like perfectionism is getting in the way. Let's say you can't start a task because it's not perfect. You can't create this thing you wanted to create because the conditions are not right. And like whatever it is, you really want to do this thing, but the perfectionism is kind of sabotaging you. And I will be completely honest and share a bit of, you know, where perfectionism gets in my way. I am such a perfectionist with editing my videos for YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and sometimes I will spend way too much time editing a video to the point where I don't even post it. This is something that I am working on. Even though I've been on my healing journey for 5.5 years, like this is how stuff manifests. Even if you've been doing the work for a long time, like there's always gonna be new layers of stuff to heal from, right? So as they say, new level, new devil. But regardless, it's really all the same process. It's all about processing that repressed shame. So first of all, you wanna recognize the scenario where perfectionism is getting in the way. And second of all, be gentle with yourself. That you've been through a lot in your life, and the thing you're struggling with getting done right now because perfectionism is getting in the way of it is a byproduct of what you've been through. This isn't for no reason. And it's not an overnight process. It did not take you overnight to become a chronic perfectionist or whatever. And it's not going to take you overnight to stop being a perfectionist. Like I said, I'm a perfectionist too, or rather a recovering perfectionist. And there's so many things that I used to be a perfectionist about back before I started my healing journey. And there's, you know, certain things where I'm just like, okay, that's good enough, I don't care. And that took so much work to get to that point. And now there's other things that come up, like editing videos, where I'm like, oh my God, it has to be perfect, but I'm catching myself. So that's really how like healing works. Like you're not gonna be this magically healed unicorn. Like the shit is gonna surface in one way or another, whether you like it or not. But the more that you keep focusing on your healing journey and continuing your healing journey, because there's really no end point. Healing just becomes a lifestyle change. The more you're gonna start catching yourself when you're in these traits and these trauma responses and all that, and you're gonna be able to, you know, you're gonna actually have the tools, first of all, to work through it and, you know, tackle the next beast that's there. And, you know, it's to be expected for perfectionists to creep back up in the future, like I just shared about myself. So don't beat yourself up if, you know, you've been working really hard on your perfectionism and you've reached a certain level of like, okay, cool, like I can be a good enoughist about whatever. And then there's this other thing that comes up and you're noticing that you're a perfectionist again. And it doesn't mean that all the work you've done is in the garbage. No, it's just like the next level of healing for you. You want to take baby steps one day at a time, one emotion at a time, and just, you know, really noticing where the emotions are in your body, because emotions are a physical process, not a mental one. And once you start really understanding the physical side of healing and physically feeling your emotions, like it's really such a game changer. I'll kind of walk you through it really quick. Think of whatever led you to this video, right? Like whatever you're struggling with, the perfectionism is getting in the way with, what does that shame feel like? And where do you feel it in your body? And just notice where it is in your body. Let it be there without trying to change it, without trying to make it go away, just literally letting that unpleasant feeling exist in your body. And you can even notice on a scale of 1 to 10, how intense is this shame? When you actually focus on it and let it be in your body and follow that sensation in your body, right? Maybe it's in your chest, maybe it's in your head, maybe it's in your throat. It doesn't matter. It's going to be somewhere. And you let it be there. You let it just suck. You're going to notice the intensity level is going to go down. And it might go from a 10 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10 or a 7 to a 1. Like, don't worry about the numbers. Just notice that it is going to go down a little bit or a lot. And that's you releasing a little layer of shame. And you're gonna have to keep doing that. Hate to be the bearer of bad news, but healing is not a one and done thing. It's not like, you know, it's not like a fitness journey, right? You walk on a treadmill one time ever for like 20 minutes and then your cardiovascular health is like perfect, right? Like you have to maintain, right? So think of doing the inner work and processing your emotions and journaling and all that stuff as like an emotional fitness journey of some sort where you have to keep doing it, right? Like hygiene, you have to shower every day. You have to wash your hands multiple times a day, right? It's not like you wash your hands once and you never have to wash your hands again. That's disgusting. So think of your emotional health the same way as you would think about like hygiene. Because really, the more that you ignore your emotions and pretend they're not there and repress them, the more they go absolutely nowhere. They stay stuck in the body. They can manifest as physical chronic pain. If you know anything about my story, you know that chronic pain brought me here. Chronic pain is why I'm a coach. Maybe I'll do an updated video on that in the future, but that's for another time. And I know that it can sound counterintuitive where I'm telling you to focus on the unpleasant emotion that you want to go away, but that's how you make it go away. And if you're skeptical, I get it, and I invite you to ask yourself, how has ignoring and pushing those feelings down been working out for you, right? And I mean that in the most loving way possible. Like, you just have to really start getting curious about those emotions and really understand that maybe the way you've been doing things hasn't been working because it just doesn't work. So I hope that helps. That's it for today's video. For more resources, ways to work with me, and all that great stuff, check out the link in the description, and I will see you in the next video. And again, subscribe, like, comment, algorithm boosting activities for YouTube. Please and thanks. See you later.